Error analysis in linguistics. What is error analysis? Error analysis is a detailed analysis of second language learners' errors. It seeks to discover and describe different kinds of errors to understand how learners process second language data. According to Richards and Smith, they defined error analysis as a technique for identifying, classifying, and systematically interpreting the unacceptable forms of a language in the production data of someone learning either a second or foreign language. So, the keywords here are identifying, classifying, and interpreting. Let's proceed. Error analysis procedures. Ellis claimed that error analysis is usually operated on the production data of language learners, composition, speeches, etc., and any error analysis activity entails the following procedures. So, these are error analysis procedures. First, defining a corpus language. Second, identifying errors in the corpus. Third, classifying the errors. And lastly, explaining the errors. First procedure, defining a corpus of language. The first step in error analysis involves collecting and defining a set of utterances produced by language to learners. It is basically a dictionary composed of utterances produced by language to learners. Second procedure, error identification. Ellis argues that learners' comparison of sentences generates what in the target language the normal or correct sentences that correspond with them allow us to identify errors. Meaning to say, this process involves a comparison between what the learner has generated and what, in the same context, a native speaker counterpart would produce. Errors are those sentences that are grammatically ill-formed or grammatically well-formed but inappropriate for a specific context. After identifying the improper utterance, it will be possible to compare the reconstruction with the original improper utterance, and then we can define the differences in terms of the grammar of the target language. Next procedure, describing errors. Description procedure involves specifying how the forms produced by the learner differ from those produced by the learner's native speaker counterparts in the same context. So these are the most useful and commonly used taxonomies for error descriptions. First, the linguistic taxonomy. Second, surface structure taxonomy. Third, communicative effect taxonomy. And lastly, comparative taxonomy. So let's go back. Linguistic taxonomy. This classification of learner errors is based on the linguistic component or item, phonology, grammar, semantics, lexicon, and discourse that is affected by an error. This taxonomy improves teaching since it uses well-established grammatical categories which are utilized to organize language lessons in textbooks and workbooks. Surface structure taxonomy. This taxonomy works on mechanisms in which surface forms are modified or altered in incorrect utterances. These are four main ways in which learners alter target forms: addition errors, omission errors, misordering errors, misformation errors. Addition errors. Such errors refer to the presence of an element or a form which must not appear in a well-formed utterance. Omission errors. The absence of an item must appear in a well-formed utterance. Misordering errors refer to the use of wrong form of a morpheme or a structure in an utterance. Misformation errors. Three types of misformation misformation errors are commonly found in learners' errors. These are regularization. A regular marker is used for an irregular one. Archiforms. The selection of one member of a class of forms to represent others in the class. Alternative forms. Free alternation of various members of a class with each other. The surface structure taxonomy discussed here has a pedagogic advantage, especially by helping teachers to show learners how their productions deviate from target language norms. Let's proceed to communicative effect taxonomy. According to Dolai, Bert, and Krashin, it based on the perspective of their effect on the listener and reader. It deals much with distinguishing between errors that seem to cause miscommunication and those that do not. So let's proceed to comparative taxonomy. This is a comparison of second language error structures and many other forms of constructions. For example, we might compare the structure of Indonesian students' error in English learning to those of errors reported for students acquiring English as a first language. Now let's proceed to explaining errors, the last procedure in error analysis. Moriel emphasized the idea that accounting for why an error was made is the most important step in any attempt to understand the process of second language acquisition and to improve the way a second language is learned. Two sources of errors: interlingual and intralingual factors. In explaining errors, linguists have always been attempting to describe the types of errors committed by the language learners, and that is exactly the best way to start with, as it helps out the applied linguist to identify where the problem lies. Generally, researchers of second language learners have identified two sources of errors. So these are interlingual and intralingual. The interlingual error and the intralingual error. The two elements refer respectively to the negative influence of both the speaker's native language and the target language itself. Let's proceed to interlingual error. An interlingual transfer is seen as a process in which learners use their knowledge of the first language in learning a second language. It means interlingual error is an error that takes place due to a particular misuse of a particular rule of the target language. It is, in fact, quite the opposite of intralingual error. It puts the target language into focus. The target language in this perspective is thought of as an error cause. Let's proceed to intralingual error. Intralingual error have to do with faulty rule learning of the target language. Richard says, intralingual errors are those which reflect the general characteristics of rule learning, such as faulty generalization, incomplete application of rules, and failure to learn conditions under which rules apply. It means intralingual error is an error that takes place due to a particular misuse of a particular rule of the target language. It is in fact quite the opposite of interlingual error. It puts the target language into focus. The target in this language is thought of as an error cause. It results from faulty or partial learning of the target language. That's all, and thank you.